Good day. Welcome to the PowerPoint presentation and for the examination presentation for inclusive education and specific difficulties. I'm your tutor, Ms. Carisas, and this is exams guidelines for the year 2020, both for April, August, and the November examination. And this is a presentation for pre-primary, junior primary, senior primary, and and secondary for the degrees and the diplomas in these phases. Our objectives for this session is firstly we'll explore the structures of the examination paper. We will go through the examination questions based on the specific learning outcomes. Sometimes we call them ELOs. And then we'll look at the Bloom's taxonomy because that's an important part that we need to examine to see how is it related to our examination questions. So those are our three objectives for this examination session for 2020. Firstly, let's look at the assessment policy. The assessment policy requires for you to have a 50% pass requirement mark. So it is calculated from the 60% of your examination mark, and the 40% comes from your semester marks, which is from your assignment mark that we are getting. So that 40% and plus the 60% that we calculate from your examination mark. So you need to have at least a 50% pass rate in your examination. So at least that's the pass rate that we have, 50% that you must attain at the end of the day. That's our assessment policy. Now let's go through the Bloom's taxonomy verbs. Now the purpose of Bloom's taxonomy verbs is to assess the students, assess our learning based on the lower up to the higher level of thinking actually. It's our thinking skills that we are assessing to see how is this person's thinking progressing from lower level up to the higher level of thinking. So it's something that builds up from you understanding something, and then at the end you're creating something. So these 6 levels are firstly the knowledge level, comprehension level. Knowledge level is just you know something, it's facts that you're having. Comprehension level is you are giving a bit of thought into it, you are understanding it. Application is now that you understand this thing, can you apply it? And analysis is now digesting this knowledge that you are having to say that how can I apply and still question this knowledge that I'm having. Evaluating it's now to look critically at this knowledge that you are having, both the positive sides and the negative sides of this knowledge that you are having. And lastly, the knowledge that you are having, how can you create something? How can you design the inclusive or the IEP, the individual education plan? At the end of the day, once you know, firstly, the knowledge of what is an IEP, you have that knowledge. Now, with this knowledge, then you need to get the understanding. Why am I using an IEP? Why is it needed? Oh, it's for the students. It's for the learners. Oh, it's for the learner with challenges in school, with learning challenges. Then you start to create a design, a plan. And that's now where the application, the evaluation, and grading comes in. So based on these 6 levels, we ask the questions that you are asking in the examination. So it starts from the easy, as I said, lower level of knowledge, to the difficult one, which is where you create questions. There is a very informative PowerPoint YouTube presentation that is there. So if you have access to internet, please access that site and see the explanation that is given based on the Bloom's taxonomy. So that's a quite informative YouTube presentation that is there. Let's move on again to the Bloom's taxonomy. This is now a picture. When you are studying, try to create a picture of what this thing is like. So this is again a diagram of Bloom's taxonomy, starting from remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and the end creating. Now, when we look at lower level, say remembering questions, then we'll ask you list, name, define, locate, describe. So those are the questions that comes with that remembering questions where we look for facts. When we ask questions on understanding, then we use verbs like paraphrase, discuss, explain, interpret, summarize. So those are the questions that are being used. And in application, applying is where you need to use, and then you solve, you draw, you apply, you make a diagram of about this concept. So it goes forth like this. And when we come to the later stage, when we talk about creating questions, then we talk about design. You need to plan, you need to produce, evaluating. It's basically where you are critiquing that thing. You are having a critical view on that point, to say that, make a judgment to say that is inclusive education needed in our education system. So you make a judgment on it, and that's something that is your own knowledge, and then the facts that are there outside that you try to combine to make a critical judgment on it. And analyzing, again, it's against you look at how you examine this thing, how you digest the whole concept. So Bloom's taxonomy, it's a very, very informative guide. It's a very insightful guide that guides you on how to understand questions, and also on how to study your examination and prepare not only for your examination, but you prepare for your future, where you have to apply this knowledge in your classroom also. Now let's look at the examination format. It's a 2.5 hour question paper. The marks are out of 120. The questions, again, Bloom's taxonomy looks at the knowledge questions, understanding, application of your cognitive skills, behaviors, and attitudes. Your attitudes also comes through in the way you're answering the examination questions. So you answer on the examination script, and that's basically the format of the examination. And there are also another guidelines, another rules that you need to follow that are on your examination script. So go through them and adhere, please, to the rules that are there. We go into the examination guidance. This is a guidance for you, to guide you, basically to guide you on how you really need to read your questions and how you need to study when you are studying also. So firstly, read your questions carefully and answer the questions according to the marks that are allocated to the question. So if it's a five mark question, and it's a knowledge question, then give 5 facts on it, instead of writing the whole page, and then you are just going in circles about the same point. Answer what is being asked, and not what you think it's been asked. For example, when we talk about the historical models of special needs, and then we talk about the Namibian models of inclusive education, there the students are getting confused. When we talk about historical models, we look at something that happened in the past. In the past, it was segregation. It was institutionalization. So it means there was separation in the past, and then we moved and we came up to inclusion. So those are the models that we talk about when we say historical models. But when we talk about Namibian models, then we look at what are we currently implementing in our country, like learning support, resource schools, resource unit, learning support class. So those are the Namibian models that we are talking about of inclusive education. All questions that commands words that are aimed at students to tell the answers. Often students misinterpret these questions. So when one is asking a question about description, many of the students will try to give explanation, or they will just give maybe facts on it instead of discussing that question. And very importantly, again, study the Bloom's taxonomy. Answer the questions based on the verbs or the commanding words that are given within that question. Let's go again through the basic studying tips. These are now guidance again on how you need to study. Very important, know the definition of the main vocabulary words in each and every unit. It's a must that you need to know the basic and the main concepts in every unit. When you are studying unit 3 and 5, I know there's so much work that you need to cover in those 2 units. So follow the following format. For example, when we deal with epilepsy, you need to know what is epilepsy. You need to know the main symptoms or the features of a child with epilepsy. And then you need to know how can I support this learner with epilepsy. And lastly, also the causes of epilepsy. So if you study each and every special need or each and every disability that way, then you can cover a whole lot of information at once, especially with Unit 3 and 5. Now, try to design your studying, the way you are preparing your examination. Try and design it this way, because from Unit 3 and 5, for sure, either a definition or support or causes or symptoms will come from these two units. So it's very much that you cover everything in these two units that you, because we can't point and say study only hearing impairment. Then I'm unfair to you. What if you finish your studies and then you are having a child with visual impairment in your classroom? Then you didn't prepare on how to support that learner. So cover everything in these two units, and we are putting an emphasis on these four main questions. What is epilepsy, or what is hearing impairment? What is visual impairment? So what are the main symptoms? What are the ways to support? What are the causes of this disability? So those are basic tips that you can follow. Still on question 1, let's look at this out of 10 marks. It can either be a multiple choice question, it can be a true or false question, or it can be a matching question. So a multiple question is a question type where the student is asked to choose one or more items from a limited list of choice. So it means that they are in the multiple questions type of questions, there is a correct answer and there is what we call a distractor. So that answer might seem correct, but it's not. So then, based on your knowledge, then you need to choose the correct answer. True and false questions, it's where a statement is made, and then based on the statement, then a fact is given. Then you need to say whether this is true or this is false. A disability is also a handicap. Is that true or false? In a vast majority of cases, we are unable to identify exact reasons why a child is exceptional. Is that true or false? So you need to analyze these statements and then make it a true or false answer that you are giving. And then here it's questions that you look from column A to column B, the questions that you say. If I say a disability and then I might give you a definition this side, then you need to say 1 boy and 1 belongs to A. So you can kind of like match also here the statement in found in column A, you match it with statement found in column B. So either of these three type of questions will come into question 1. Question 2 is out of 20 to 30 marks. They are short questions from 5 to 10 marks. It's based again on defining concepts or terminologies, and then I've given you an example of how you need to define or how you need to write a definition. If one asks, what does the term learning difficulties mean? A difficulty in acquiring knowledge and skills to the normal level accepted of those of the same age, especially of the mental disabilities or cognitive disorders. This is just an example that I'm giving. So it might interfere with the child's reading, mathematics, memory, or other organizational skills. So give a definition where there is facts also involved in that. So that's how you need to give a definition. We move on to next question. Question 2. Again, the exit learning outcome, it's ELO, short, that's what we are using. So exit learning outcome, from exit learning outcome 3, we, as I mentioned at the beginning, where you need to focus on 3 and 5, the disabilities or the special needs that are in there. There you need to know the strategies and supporting techniques. So any of those ones will count like around 10 marks. Factors influencing the interaction of teachers with families. There are different factors. It can be cultural factors, it can be traditional factors, it can be economic factors. So those are the factors that influence the interaction between the teachers and the family. So how do they interact, and what consequences are there based on these factors? So it's in exit learning outcome 6. Exit learning outcome 7. It's based on the assessment approaches and issues for learners with learning difficulties. It's 5 marks. So 5 marks questions can either be a defining question, or a discuss question, or the describe question. So it's a very knowledge or here understanding question that you need to give. And exit learning outcome 4, it's on the aspects of child abuse. It is 5 marks. So aspects of child abuse, it entails many things. It's about what is child abuse, what are the types of child abuse, how do you report a child abuse, what factors contribute to child abuse. It's parental factors, it can be the child factors, it can be the family factors. So you also need to know those factors on the aspects of child abuse. And then lastly, the features of a disability, it's again out of exit learning outcome 3. So it comes to it features twice in question 2. I can either ask the supporting techniques, and again it can be the features of a disability. It's again 5 marks for that one. We move to question 3. It's from 20 to 30 marks. Remember, these guidelines are both for April, August, and November examination. So it's everything covered in one description and one presentation. Let's go through question 3. It's from 20 to 30 marks. It is having exit learning outcome 3 and 5. And it's gonna be a diagram, and you need to answer questions based on that diagram. So it's around 15 marks. So you usually when we give a diagram, we ask a definition, we ask something. So but it's based on a special need that is from the unit 3 and 5. And let's go to unit 7, exit learning outcome 7. It's again on assessment approaches, issues for learners with learning difficulties. Again, 5 marks for that. So assessment approaches are mostly here in this unit 7. We looked at issues of assessment in terms of how do I know that this is assessment? What are the issues and examples that I'm having that I'm assessing this child that can guide me on it. And then we look at mostly at assessment accommodations that takes place when I'm assessing a learner with a learning difficulty. So what kind of accommodations do I need to give to this child? We'll move forth to exit learning outcome 6. It's again factors that influence interaction between teachers and families. And I know many of you will ask me again to say, but it's coming in question 2. Why in question 3 again? These factors that are influencing are many factors. So this question might come in April examination, or it might come in August examination. So just understanding also that way. And we move to exit learning outcome 8. It's on the IEP, the system of the IEP. The system of the IEP, it's a very grading type of questions that will come where you need to apply your knowledge. To say that last example that we used was the observation in the IEP. How do we observe a child when I'm designing the IEP? What kind of observation steps should I take that would support me to say that this learner needs an IEP? So that's in terms of IEP. And then very importantly here, it's also the stages of the IEP that you need to know. Exit learning outcome 3 again, 3 and 5, I said it's very important. You need to know everything there. So it's on the features of disabilities or the special needs, again 5 marks for that. And exit learning outcome 2 looks at the international perspectives for protecting the rights of learners and people with special needs. The international perspectives that we are having, the 2 basic ones, it's education for all and the Salamanca Statement. So then you need to know how do we contextualize these decisions that were taken at the international level. How does it come down to our country, and how do we use it in Namibia? For example, education for all. How is it applied? How how is it made possible for our children now that education for all, it's something that is not only on paper but it's a reality. So you need to contextualize to these two international perspectives to see what kind of rights are being implemented in our country. So know them, and then it goes back to a design grading question. So it means you need to know the basic knowledge of these two perspectives. Question 4, it's 30 marks. Again, on aspects of child abuse, there's going to be a diagram, and then you need to answer based on this on that given diagram. We move on to exit learning outcome 6. It's in unit 6. Again, factors that influence the interaction between the teachers and the families. So those factors that I highlighted earlier, the cultural factors, the social, cultural, social, economic, the poverty, the language, the race also, it's got influence on how the parents interact with the teachers. And then we look at exit learning outcome 5. It looks at the courses of techniques for working with physically impaired learners. So again, there it goes to cerebral palsy. It also have a kind of an aspect of epilepsy also comes in here. So what are the courses and what are the techniques for working with learners with physical impairment? And then we'll move to the next one, which is from unit 3. So you again see that unit 3 and 5 is very prominent. It comes a lot in the question paper. So it's something that you really need to master, because it's there where the main emphasis is on the children with special needs, that you really need to know all of them. Again, here it's about the strategies and the supporting techniques on how do I need to support this learner with the given disability. It goes up to 10 marks, and it's very important that you need to master this through these 2 units. Lastly, in question 4, we looked at the models of special needs education. So again, let's go back to what I said earlier when I said when we look at the inclusive models now, the Namibian inclusive models and the models of special needs education. So when it comes to Namibian, then you need to know, we are going to learning support. When we come to models of special needs or the historical models, then we really need to look at integration, we need to look at segregation, we need to look at institutionalization. So those are the models, meaning that when we say models, we say 50 years ago, what were the people doing with the special needs learners or people with disabilities? What was being done? Were there also some things, concepts of inclusion there? But then we say no, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, the people were institutionalized. It means they were placed in group homes. They were placed in mental institutions and there was this stigma on them that they are crazy. There's these dumb, these stupid people. So that was the main knowledge, main social understanding that was going on during that era. But now where we are in current state, we talk about inclusion, we talk about integration. So that's now the model that we are doing now. 20 years from now, or 100 years from now, our children will say, no, that inclusion didn't work. They might start with something else. So that's what we call the models for special needs. What happened throughout the history? And that's in exit learning outcome 1. Our last question, question 5, it's 30 marks also. It's on exit learning outcome 7. The assessment approaches and issues for learners with learning difficulties. Assessment approaches again, examples, the major issues around assessment, the major issues around what is alternative assessment, what is traditional assessment, what is formal assessment, those basic concepts also that you really need to understand what they are. And then here also, I said earlier, when this question also featured, then I said, okay, you also need to look at issues of assessment accommodations. It's very important that you understand those accommodations, the setting. How does the setting work? If I have to accommodate a learner with hearing impairment, what do I need to adapt within that setting that need to support this learner? So those are basic things that we look at. And things that we look at here are, how can you go and apply this knowledge within your classroom? What can you take away from your study? Not just knowing something, but can I go and apply this knowledge that I really have acquired here in my studies? That's what we want at the end of the day. And then we look at exit learning outcome 6, looks at the factors influencing interactions between the teachers and the families. Now here the focus, I've now diverted a bit. The focus in these questions is from this unit is on inclusive classrooms. It's within the same chapter again, but see the cursive writing that says that the focus is on inclusive classrooms. Now, when we talk about inclusive classrooms, I've seen that many of you are diverting to inclusive communities. That is something totally different. When we talk about classroom, we talk about teaching, we talk about learning, we talk about assessment. Those are the three things that is taking place in a classroom. So in terms of teaching, how do I need to be inclusive in terms of my instructions? Am I learner-centered? Am I teacher-centered? Am I just the only one talking in this classroom? And in terms of learning, how do I prepare my learners' work? Can I prepare a worksheet for a learner with a visual impairment? So in terms of these three main topics: teaching, learning, assessment, and very importantly, you can even bring in here the issues of assessment accommodations, because we are talking about inclusive classroom, meaning that how do I need to assess my learner at the end of the day? So there needs to be some sort of accommodations. So you will see there's some sort of integration as you are studying, that you can apply the knowledge that you are having from Unit 3 into Unit 6, or Unit 7 into Unit 6 also. So that comes when you really do in-depth study and prepare yourself for your examination. And lastly, we look at the exit learning outcome 2, which is the international perspectives for protecting the rights of people with special needs. Again, the emphasis is on the two main perspectives, which is EFA, Education for All, and the Salamanca statement. And Salamanca is a city where it took place, so there they made several decisions in terms of what can we do to support our special needs learners, children. So based on those decisions, how do we contextualize it in our country? It's on exit learning outcome 2. So our examination paper is from question 1 to 5, and we have covered all the questions that needs to be covered, and everything that needs to be covered to guide you for your examination preparation. And here at Iol, we really believe that education is the greatest equalizer, and it's up to you for as a student to sit down, to make that effort and study and give and make time. It's something that you really need to edge yourself and get discipline into how you need to study into it. Again, studying directions for it. It covers both the pre-primary, junior primary, senior primary, and senior secondary students. The topics that are covered in the comprehensive exit learning outcomes are based on the exit learning outcomes that every student needs to know. It's in your study guide. And also, very importantly, before you start studying, try to understand what does your ELO say. What does your comprehensive exit learning outcomes say? What are the outcomes of this unit? And that will guide you. Very importantly, do not limit yourself to your study guide again. Read widely, consult books, internet, and have study groups with your fellow students. It's very important. And consult your tutor. Consult me. Make use of the consultation times before the examination starts. And don't do it 2 weeks or a week or 2 days before. Right as you start with your assignment, as you receive your books and everything, consult your tutor, and then we start our process of guidance on how you need to study and then what you really need to focus on. My consultation times, cell phone number is up there, is 08127140037. You can even send me an email, but email might take time for me to answer you. It might take a day or two, but for sure I will reply that. You can consult me during weekdays from Mondays to Thursdays from 7:30 to 8:30. And then during the weekends on Saturdays from 4 o'clock up to 6 o'clock. And when you consult me during these times and my phone is busy, then it means I'm busy with another student. So send me a text message, and then I will come back to you for sure. So again, education is the greatest equalizer, and that's what we stand for here at Iol. And through your studies, we are equalizing, and we are bringing you on par with every citizen of this country. All the best with the studies, and this is for the Namibian child that you are doing. Thank you very much.